Anyway, this is not about me. This is all about E! All right, so I'm assuming most of you have seen it, but I'm going to give you a little...
Let's see who has.
Who has seen it?
Who's managed to see the film?
It's okay, guys. If you haven't, we do have DVDs here that you can buy, and I will sign them for you.
Oh, all right. Well, then let me tell you a little bit about it. All About E is a 2015 feature film about E, a DJ and classically trained musician who finds herself on the wrong side of a drug dealer. E flees to the Australian Outback, where she looks up her ex-girlfriend, the one that got away, Trish. The two rekindle a relationship as E is on the road, and E is forced to face the decisions she's made to keep her true self from her family. There's a lot to unpack in this movie. There's a lot of things going on. We are thrilled to have 3 members of the cast and crew here at ClexaCon London. Please welcome writer and director of All About E, Louise Wadley. Producer Jay Rutovitz, or Rutovitz? Rutovitz. And E herself, Mandahla Rose. Thank you. What a welcome. Mandahla has been just a ray of sunshine, just flitting about ClexaCon the last few days.
Flitting about, that's
Flitting about. She tried to cheat in trivia by helping people with answers, but good thing, didn't know any of the answers.
Not a single one.
Okay, so Louise, what inspired the story of All About E?
Oh, it's a long time since I've been asked that. Look, All About E was inspired by lots of things, but I think mainly it was about the whole thing about what it's like to not be yourself, about having the bravery to both try and be who you are, or even if you know who you are, but also to be brave enough to go for what you really want. So E is a classically trained musician who's not out to her Arabic family. You know, she's Lebanese. There's a lot of Lebanese in Australia, if you don't know. There's a big Lebanese population. And it's really hard because she wants to do the right thing and she wants to please her parents and everything like that, but she just can't be herself. Or that's how she feels. And so, I wanted to also do something that was about, you know, the masks we wear, that we all have to sometimes put on masks to survive. And I think lesbians and gays often have to do that. You know, I think LGBTQ people have to put on masks often to survive. So it was really about that.
Jay.
Yes.
You're an environmental scientist.
I am.
How the hell did you become a producer of a lesbian film?
How indeed?
It was just a moment of madness.
Okay, no, but you've done others, so it's not just the one.
She's a serial offender.
Yes.
You are a serial offender, so tell us about this. Because when I was researching you, I was like, this is just incredible.
Okay, so I used to be an electrician. I was a gaffer in film.
Do you know what gaffer?
Oh, gaffer is you do the lighting, all the lights. And Louise and I met. Louise is my partner through being electricians, actually. And so then you went off and did film, and I did environmental science, but I mostly renewable energy. But but I still worked on Louise's films, and eventually I got. I said she kept saying she wanted to make a feature film, and I said eventually I got fed up with this and said. So what would you make and how much would it cost? And she went away and did some sums, and I thought, oh, what can I tell her that, you know, sounds like she might do it? And came back and said All About E and $100,000. And I went, oh, that's all right. I can raise that. Well, it was just not true.
Someone is looking for a lead role and she sounds perfect for you. You definitely need to go, you know, audition for it. And I remember looking it up and reading about E. She's, you know, Lebanese, she's a musician, and it just sounded exactly like me. E. And I ended up, I think I emailed you. I said that I was interested. I don't think I had a show, or maybe I did, but anyway, I sent you all my things, and then you contacted me and said, would you be happy to audition? And I said yes. But then I think it was the couple of days before I was meant to hand in my actual self-tape, Louise asked if I would be interested to fly to Sydney to audition for E in person. And the best thing about auditioning is actually being in the room, because the casting agents get to meet you as who you are, and just because, you know, when you walk into a room with people, you actually already get a sense of who they are. So it was a great opportunity for me to be able to fly to Sydney. And I remember going there. I took my flute with me because I played the flute since I was 8 years old, and I wanted them to know that I was musically talented. So I took my flute with me, and I met both Jay and Louise, and I get really shit scared in front of auditions and large crowds and people in general. And I auditioned and played the flute. I remember I was shaking like a leaf playing my damn flute. And Louise said that, you know, we've got a lot of E's to audition for, to audition, and we'll let you know in a couple of weeks. I think it was only a couple of days later that you called me up and said, we would love to offer you the role of E. And I can still visualise I'm pacing up and down in my house, like with this giant, massive fuck-off smile on my face, like, oh my God, I just scored a lead role in a feature film, and it was my first. So that was my first introduction to this. How did I approach E? E is, she's really special. Yeah, she has a lot of problems, but we all do. And it's how we go about those problems that actually, I guess, is what makes them who they are. So it was interesting at the time because I kind of felt mirror images of E's life in my own life as well. So it was kind of interesting to see that happen. I also remember feeling the pressure of having a feature film on my shoulders, and Jay and Louise, we're family now. Like, Louise would actually pull me aside and, you know, just it's okay, just deep breath, you've got this, you are talented, you're okay. And E was a really wonderful first character to approach. I think I answered that. Yeah.
I think that perfectly.
Cool. Let me have some coffee.
The Australian Outback plays a really big role in the film. It's almost like its own character. Why did you decide to feature this legendary landscape?
Look, Australia, some of you have been there maybe. I don't know if anyone's been to Australia. Has anyone been? Yeah, so just a few. So it is, I'm really glad to hear you say that it's like a character, because for me, Australia is such an interesting mix of places. Most people live in cities on the coast, but the landscape is really special, and I love road movies. I love the way road movies throw characters onto a literal journey, and they have to get across things. The landscape itself is trying to teach E something, and I'm very passionate about the landscape. It's incredible. If you ever get a chance to go to Australia, don't just go to the beach. Mm-hmm. Go west. If you fly into Eastern Australia, or if you're lucky enough, go to Western Australia, go to Northwestern Australia. So I really wanted to show something, and I wanted that contrast. E is all about two worlds. She's got her migrant family who are desperately proud of her. She's the first one to go to university in her family. So just like Mandahla felt the pressure of her first film role as a feature lead, E feels this pressure. I have to be a good girl. I have to go to university and do what I said I was going to do. She's terrified of letting her parents down. And most of us can relate to that in some way. So the story is about two worlds all the time. It's about the city world, the country world, you know, the outback world. It's about living inside a family that's your biological family or your chosen, and then there's your chosen family. So I just wanted all these kind of things to mirror each other. It's about lots of different worlds.
Now, I'm curious, where are you from in Australia, both of you? Well, all of you. I know you're Adelaide, right?
I'm Adelaide, also known as Radelaide, because it's rad.
And where is that in Australia?
Adelaide is South Australia, so obviously it's split up. You've got all western side. Australia, if you go straight down the middle, you've got Northern Territory, and then South Australia down the bottom.
So I'm originally from Brisbane, so I grew up, which is this kind of tropical, more tropical on the northeast. And I lived in Australia grew up in Australia, and then I moved to England, and I lived here and went to film school here. And then I said to my beautiful partner Jay, I'm so sick of getting bronchitis every winter. Could we try Australia? And she said yes. And so we went back to Australia, and we've just come back after being there for 16 years because we missed the weather, right? So now we live in Yorkshire, and I'm setting up a film festival in Hebden Bridge, so please come.
Okay, where are you from?
Originally from South Africa, then moved all the time, most of the childhood in the north of England, and then Sydney in 2001, and just moved back to Yorkshire.
Mandahla, since you're looking at me, you've pretty much been out your entire career, right?
That is correct. Yes.
What was that like for you initially, and how has that changed for you over the years?
Initially, I mean, there was a time when I was straight, funnily enough.
Whatever.
I was only very new in my career, and I remember being asked the question when I did actually come out, because it was a short film called Priya. If you find it, have fun with that. And it was during that film actually that I did come out, and there was no question for me that I was going to hide who I was. It was just like, this is who I am, this is the career that I want to follow, and I'm not going to hide who I am. So I did get asked the question a lot, like, how do you feel about being pigeonholed as a lesbian all the time? And I remember thinking in the beginning, oof, like, would that actually affect my career? So of course there were thoughts about that, but then it's just been a no-brainer for me. I'm out and I'm proud, and I want people to, I don't want to hide like who I am or what I am or my sexuality, because why? How is that going to affect my career? So, yeah, I'm quite happy to be open and out and gay. And the great thing is that every role that I've played since I've moved to the States, only one of them has been straight, and I've done about 9 projects. So that's really cool. And I figure if I keep getting cast in queer roles, then it means that there's more content coming out anyway for us.
So I ordinarily wouldn't ask about this, but since you were on the How to Direct Sex Scenes panel yesterday, let's talk about that love scene.
Yes!
And why was it so important to film it the way you did?
So All About E has a very big love scene where E finally gets together with the love of her life, Trish. So there's that long period of, will they, won't they, will they, won't they. And when they finally get together, it's meant to be a very powerful moment. And I had seen a lot of sex scenes, which...
Research! It was professional research.
And to be frank, and all research, all about the sex scenes were often... quite seriously, they didn't reflect what I know to be true about lesbians who are having sex. And there were 2 things about the sex scene done that were really important. And we had to be really, really upfront when we auditioned people. We had to say, we are going to be doing a sex scene, and it's not going to be the curtains close. It's not going to be they kiss and then we fade out. Are you okay with that? And of course, we're asking a lot. We're asking our actresses to be very vulnerable. But to me, it was really important. As a lesbian, I felt like it was an incredibly special, almost sacred thing when you have that incredible love. And we wanted to do a love scene that was something that lesbians would actually recognise as what their own experience. And boy, there are a lot of sex scenes out there that are directed by guys, which I don't know where they're coming from, but it's not what you know. And I also want to do something about intimacy because, truthfully, I think it's quite hard to show a really powerful, intimate scene, which is also a sex scene, because sex scenes are often about they do this and they do that, and we wanted to show something which was about the coming together of those two worlds. Of, you know, this couple really came from two different worlds. Trish is, you know, a white farmer's daughter, and, you know, she falls in love with E, who is from another world, and they have to work out how can they be together. And we all understand that, don't we? We all know what it's like to fall in love with someone from a different world, and is it going to work? So that sex scene, in all seriousness, it's quite long. We debated about it.
It is quite long, yeah.
But and I think, you know, it was really important. How I approached it was very much to. We were very blessed. We have the most beautiful actress, Julia Billington, who plays Trish. Mandahla. The happy coincidence was they also are lesbians. So they felt really passionately about the way it should be portrayed. And it was all about us talking and communicating and saying, you have to be okay with this. So anyone who auditioned, we were really upfront and said, you have to be okay with this, and it's absolutely fine if you don't want to do it, but this is what I want to do. And we've had so much feedback, and it's really interesting because there is not a lot of lesbian sex on screen, television, web series, or films, which I think show the truth. So, you know, it was really important. I think in some ways, you know, we might have had an easier time if we'd had a smaller scene, actually. And the actors were fantastic.
We did only have 4 hours to shoot that as well, though.
5 hours.
5 hours, sorry. In a really, it was...
The sex scene isn't that long, by the way. I know it's long. It's not 4 hours long.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that the, you know, Blue of the Warmest Colour came out just a bit about when we were cutting our scene and we went to see it in other ways. Yeah, exactly.
We're going to get there.
They had 10 days. They shot for 10 days.
Obviously, the director was a male.
Okay, well, and that's exactly what I'm going to next. There's a lot of talk about the male gaze when it comes to lesbian and queer love scenes. And so that perfect example is Blue is the Warmest Color. How is the female gaze different, and more specifically, the lesbian gaze?
Shall I
Well, all of you.
Do you want to start?
Any of you can join in.
Look, I think it's just exactly what I was saying is the reason it was so important. So many people have come up to us after screenings. We released the film in Australia. We've showed it about 30 places, and people would come up to us afterwards and say, I've never seen anything like that. I'm so thankful. It wasn't always said, that's because it's a lesbian gaze, but I really wanted to make a film that was from the lesbian gaze, not the porno guy gaze, you know, not the kind of, you know, so it's really important. Having said that, I do think that we suffered because of that. I think that the straight distributors didn't know what to do with us. They also said to us, oh no, we have the Blue is the Warmest Colour, we can't take another lesbian film. So, you know, there's only one room for one. So it was really important to me, but I think a female gaze, if you ever want to see Jill Soloway's talk, have any of you seen Jill Soloway talk, the writer of Transparent? She's done an amazing talk on YouTube where she gave an address about the female gaze, and I think it makes a difference. We need lesbians making content for lesbians that other people see as well, but we need our own content. So that's my...
Yeah, and I think it did make a difference that our cinematographer is a woman. I think it made a difference that we certainly tried to make both you and Julia feel really safe in that situation. I felt like I was also, as the producer, had a role in there. I don't know if you remember, I talked to you and Julia both separately beforehand. They both thought they were in trouble because the producer was talking to them. And it was to say, I know you have to, you know, you are doing the sex scene, but I want you do know you don't have to do anything you don't feel comfortable with. And if anyone asks you to do things that you feel comfortable with, you talk to me. And I think it was actually important to say that and for you to know that you also had control in that, because that's some of what you're filming is, you know, the characters...
It's called consent.
Yeah, exactly. And that the characters are doing something they want to and feel in control. And of course it's a film, it's not real, it's all of that, but the actresses also have to feel that safety, and I think that was really important.
As someone who has been sexually abused by males, I already have a wall up. Now, the thing about Jay and Louise is we have that rapport before we actually shot that scene anyway. So we had been talking a lot before that. We'd also been rehearsing and choreographing the sex scene as well. So, and with clothes on, because I was super shy, of course. And it was just like, you know, it was a dance. And I remember that day how comfortable we were made to feel. Both of us felt super comfortable, and we felt super comfortable and safe with each other as well. Now I'm trying to think, have I done a sex scene with a guy? I have, but he's like a really great friend, so that's different. You know, when you look at something like Blue is a Warmest Colour and I hear what those girls went through, it's just, no person, not just an actor, but no person should have to go through what they went through. So if I come across a script that happens to have a sex scene, I will look at who, obviously, the director is. Do I feel comfortable with them? If I do, cool. Is the sex scene actually, is it gratuitous? Should it be part of the actual story? I knew what we were getting into when we first were going into All About E, because it was straight away put on the board, there is going to be a sex scene, and it's going to be... I mean, I actually still get people private messaging being like, did you guys actually have sex? And I'm like, no, just that's really good choreography.
And it's called acting.
It's called acting.
And you know, what was lovely was, I have to say, you know, Julia is a beautiful person and a wonderful actress, and the chemistry between Mandahla and Julia, what we were trying to do is what happened. We had this beautiful chemistry on screen. So I'm sort of flattered that people say, did you actually have sex? Of course they didn't, but truly the fact that people think that is about a testament to their talent and to our incredible cinematographer, who is such a fabulous cinematographer. She's shot a lot of features, she's very experienced, and she knew what she was doing. We had rehearsed it. We wanted that feeling that you have when you're in a room with someone and everything else is invisible. There's just nobody else but you and her, and I think that's what happened.
I mean, there was a moment where you're like, when my eyes are closed, you're like, Mandahla, can you just tilt your chin up a little bit? just up a little bit. And yep, and open your... So there were moments where it's like, oh, yep, that's right, we're shooting.
There's a camera right here.
Camera's right above me. But I was actually really lucky that I had Julia as my co-star, because she has studied at NIDA and like she was just so confident and was just someone whom I very much trusted to show me the ropes in a way of being in that kind of environment. She was quite happy to take her kid off, because that's what the NIDA kids learn to do. That's just normal. And I was always like, now do I take my shirt off?
Mandahla shared a little funny story with me when we were on the podcast together. She was saying that she tends to be a little soft-spoken, and you had to so ADR is when you go back in a film and re-record some some dialogue that.
Yep. I was in this room because, of course, I had to, because Trish was much louder Julie was much louder than me on the actual day. So you couldn't hear me at all, I believe, right? And I had to go into the ADR room with the actual sex scene up on the screen, and I had to match what was happening. And, of course, there's this big window, and Louise, who is kind of like, a guardian now, like a mum, is right there. And I am quite and I had to,
well, you were there for the actual sex scene.
Well, yeah. Right, like, pretty much there. And I remember having to, okay, this is my job. I have to do it. It was terrifying.
I think there's something about, even when you've done a job like that, it's a big screen, and Mandahla was having to make sound effects to the action on screen.
This happens,
and she
by
was
the way,
sort of looking.
all the time. This happens.
I had to
all
do the
time.
same thing for a masturbation scene for Crazy Bitches, my own masturbation scene, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And that was this year. That was not that long ago.
Sing out, Louise. That's what you need to do. All right. That was fun, but now we got to get back into this. All right.
Okay.
Obviously, E loves her family very dearly, but she has to hide so much of herself. I mean, not just her sexuality, but these other things that she's passionate about because of the fear of not being accepted by them. Why was it important for all of you to present E this way and say not as an out and proud woman going about her life?
Because there are so many, majority of individuals out there are not open and proud, or not, maybe quietly proud, but because they could potentially be in danger also. I think it was really important for us to tell E's story that she is ashamed, ashamed is the right word, unfortunately, because there is that. Because we are told in society how we should be as people, and not being gay is not a societal
Fabulous thing.
Yeah. So it was really important to bring that across, to let people know that it's not normal. Normal's not the right word, man. It's not comfortable for everyone to come out, because it's not safe, and there are fears that you will their back, like people have their back turned against you. And E, her parents. Okay, so in the story, E lost her brother, who was the pride of the family, and the fact that not only did she not follow her musical career, she's a DJ, but she's also not straight. She's very, very gay, and her parents are very, 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 very Lebanese. And I mean, it was the only way to be able to tell that story. Really, is the fact that she was scared.
I think most lesbian and gay people, people who feel the other, have the experience of having. That's why I talk about two worlds. They have the experience of having to play a role. So whether, it might be that someone is very out and proud in their family circle, but they sure might not be out at work, because it might not be okay, because you might have an arsehole boss.
Or there are rules that's like where you'll get fired.
Or you'll get fired. You might be a teacher at a Catholic school, and they just will fire you. I think the important thing is, E is the child of immigrants. She is the first person in that family to go to university. The expectations upon her. Her family desperately want to, fit into Australia. They want her to be the good girl. And the boy, the apple of the family's eye, has died. And so E has all that pressure. Because it's not just a love story. It's also a story really about E and her mother.
It's a family drama, too.
Yeah. And it's about, when you're the child of immigrant parents, you have that pressure, I think. And I think it's not safe. There are lots of communities where it is not okay still. Yes, we're in London now, whatever. We were in Sydney filming E, but E comes from a little coastal town, industrial place further south of Sydney, where maybe in E's family's community, it would be shameful if the community knew that their daughter was a lesbian. So it's not because E's stupid that she's worried about coming out, but it's also that thing that we all have to learn, that maybe the world won't end, and maybe there's a really fabulous world on the other side of coming out, but it might take a little while. And that's the message of the film, really.
Yeah.
I think it was also important that it's not the thing she was coming to was very much about herself and her mother and her music, that this thing that she had gone to university and gone to study, and her mother was going, you could be a music teacher, and that this part, It's that thing about being the bearer of your mother's dreams, which I don't think is just a, that's pretty universal, and many women carry that. And that, of course, it's an extra pressure because of being first-generation immigrant, but that's a pretty big thing for many, many women. And what does she do with that, and how does she resolve it? And I think that's also the story in the film.
Because backstory, E's mum was a singer back in Beirut, and she gets pregnant with E, and so the backstory is that there's all this disappointment that maybe she didn't get to live out who she was, and so there's a lot of things going on in the film.
Many queer filmmakers struggle to get their films made. Period, because securing financing is increasingly difficult. Lots of people turn to crowdfunding, but how were you, I know Jay had a lot to do with it, but how were you able to make All About E happen?
So we started off with this false budget of $100,000, which I thought I could probably raise from investors, and more or less pretty much did, but by that time, and obviously we were also applying for screen funding, funding agency money, which we didn't get any. But by that time we had a real budget, so we really knew it was quite a lot more than that. It went on and on and on, as these things do. And there was a point when I think I went, and one of our investors also, who had committed $20,000, went, if you don't actually make this, I have to do something else with this cash. So we went, right, we either have to go ahead or actually stop. And it was at that point that we made a decision to do crowdfunding. And again, I worked out the absolute minimum we could shoot for and went, right, we're going to crowdfund, and we will either get this and go ahead, or we will just stop and take all those, give all those commitments back. So, and I think that really helped, that it was, so we were crowdfunding for $88,000. I think it helped that was, we were saying either we're going to go ahead with this or we will stop. So that was the true story, and we made it, but it was pretty tough.
It was very tough. We, by the time we made our target, which neither of us thought we'd necessarily make, because crowdfunding, let me tell you, is no fun. It's fun in the sense that if you succeed and you make your film, that's fantastic. But it was, $88,000. It's a lot of money. We were the biggest crowdfunding campaign in Australia at the time. Lots more have been bigger since. People were amazing, but it was 3 months of really tough time, hard work. Hundreds of people helped us, and the community came together. Like, our community came together, and in that time, Jay had a paragliding accident. Everything you could think that could go wrong went wrong. So she broke her arm, she had a bonk on the head, I broke my nose. Everything that could have gone wrong that went wrong. But we were very determined, and we knew if we don't get this money, it's all over. All our plans, everything like that. And I think that really helped. And the women, particularly, who were supportive of us, were amazing. Around the country, we went and talked to different people. We went to dinner with people. We had, potlucks. Everything came together. And I would say to you, if you're going to do a project, you're going to do crowdfunding, think about it carefully, plan it, and get lots of friends to help, because it's really hard.
I know we have just about 10 or so minutes left, so I'd love to open it up to audience questions if anybody has any.
So if maybe someone is in a position where they might want to fund a project, but they don't necessarily want to just donate the money, they kind of want it to be an investment, how can someone get into doing that side of it where, because it's different to give several $1,000s just to, here, go make a thing, versus like an investment into a project that you fund?
So we have a mixture. The crowdfunding is obviously donation. We also have investors. So I think we raised 88,000 crowdfunding, 220,000 investment, and those investors, they just have to invest on the basis that they might not get. It's at risk, and I have paid some money back to our investors. I thought, I was certainly clear that it was at risk, but we have so far paid back about 80,000.
What is someone on this side? How would you go about in being an investor in a project?
If you any project that is crowdfunding will also be taking investments. Talk to any producer. Talk to me. You want to invest? But just be aware that it is, most film projects do not make their money back. This is not just lesbian films. This is across the board. It is very unusual. I think it's more than 50% never make any money back.
And if you want to get involved, are you asking the question because you're saying rather than just give money and see what happens, as in being involved in the project? Is that what the question was about?
Either side, I guess. I know a lot of people who have funds, and it's easier conceptually to put money into something that could potentially give you
Yes.
All investment is risky. If you buy a stock or whatever, it's all risky. But it's easier to kind of part people with more, maybe to donate money in hopes to get a return versus just giving money without any type of object of return in large amounts when you're at that point.
I think actually a lot of the decision would be about what sort of project do you want to invest, how alternative, it's really choosing that if you want to find a project, find a project that you really like because you might well lose that money. But there are, countless to invest in.
Well, some of your investors must have ended up being producers on the film too, right?
2 execs, yeah.
Yeah, and also I would say that some of our investors, they are friends and they knew that, that it was a risky thing. They are incredibly happy that they feel like we've made an incredibly high quality product. It's a film that looks like over $1 million. It cost about $750,000 to do, so it was on that level of things. But it looks like a much higher quality film, and we're very proud of that. And the investors, they haven't got their money back, but they are very, very pleased to have made that and to made this happen. Mandahla's moved to Hollywood. She has a career. That is always going to be, one of the best outcomes in my view. And also, we're really proud of the film. We get people write to us. I know that in England we haven't got distribution. You can come to us or go on our website to find out more. But to me, it's really important. We've made a film that is making a difference to people's lives. So we get comments from people all around the world saying, thank you for showing me on screen. And to me that's just gold. That's.
Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
Would you like to make another part, 1 second? There's a great...
Like a sequel?
Yes, spin-off, call it whatever. But for me there's a great storyline there. It's not that E is now...
Just everything's okay.
Yeah, it's not the happy ending. It's an open ending for me. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Look, I have other projects that I would like to do. It's not in my mind, but I feel like I'm very glad that you feel like it is an open ending, because I wanted people to feel like E has evolved and moved on, and it was very important to me not to have a tragic ending, because lesbians is a bit like Victorian novel. They often have to die. Why are we at ClexaCon? Because people had to die.
And hey, I just want to point out, 2018 has had the least amount of queer women and trans non-binary character deaths in history. What?
Okay, so 2017-2018 television season had 9, lowest. However, this newest television season that's only been 5 weeks, we've already had 6 Bury Your Gays in the first 5 weeks of fall TV. So
okay, so my data is about 6 weeks out. So much for that. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. But look. I think I want to make stories about us, and I want to make stories that tell incredible lots of different things. And I think characters like E, we need to see more of them. Would I make a sequel if I was given the funding? Absolutely. But I have other projects that I'm trying to tell. There's some amazing stories still to be told, and I think. What do you think?
I like I said, I have a very soft spot for E, it is wonderful that it's left open, but I think it's left open for the imagination. What is it that E and Trish end up doing? Like, you see how happy they are. Like, there's a lot of people in here who have watched it, so I'm not going to say anything. So, like, it would be wonderful to bring E back to life again, but I think her story is told. But any other projects, Louise, that you're in?
Anybody else? One more question? Okay. Well, thank you for this incredible panel and this incredible movie, which...
Just like to say...
Got it right here.
Other way.
And there's,
Got it right here.
And there's lots
all
of
three
extras.
of you sign it?
Absolutely, if you want. There's
three.
lots of extras on the DVD that you can't see anywhere else.
yeah,
So
interviews with Mandel, interviews with Louise.
interviews with Mandela, interviews with us, interviews with Julia, who is
Interviews
truly...
with us looking very tired.
It's a fun film. It's a drama-filled film. It's a sexy film. It's everything you want. Pick up a copy if you can. Get it signed. Thank you all so very much for being here.
Yeah, and thank you so much for
Thanks,
coming.
guys.
Thank you.